And I would now call officers from the NBN Co Limited to come to the table. I'd particularly like to welcome Mr Philip Knox as the interim CEO of NBN Co. Welcome to our friendly little experience. Do you have an opening statement that you would like to make?
Yes, Chair, I do. I understand time is precious, so I'll try and endeavour to be quick.
Thank you.
So, good afternoon, Senators. It's good to be in Canberra today. I'm Philip Knox. I am NBN's interim Chief Executive Officer. On the 4th of May, Stephen Rue resigned from his position as CEO of NBN after almost a decade with the company. For his first 4 years with the company, Mr Rue was the Chief Financial Officer, and soon after he was appointed to the position of CEO, I was appointed into the CFO role. I've had the pleasure of working closely with Mr Rue for almost 6 years, and together we've led the company through a period of significant growth and transformation. The company has consistently met or exceeded its financial and operational objectives year on year. It's been an enormous privilege to work under Mr Rue's leadership and alongside a talented team that remain dedicated to connecting Australians to high-quality broadband services across the country. As part of our commitment to a smooth transition, effective the 7th of May, I was appointed by NBN's board as the interim CEO. The board has commenced a recruitment process to appoint a permanent CEO. Mr Rue is no longer involved in the day-to-day leadership or operation of the company and has commenced a period of leave pending his commencement at Optus in November 2024. It is with great pride that I step into this appointment as the interim CEO. I've served NBN as its Chief Financial Officer since February 2019 and bring to the role more than 30 years of financial experience, including previous leadership roles and extensive knowledge of the technology and media industries. I am, of course, well supported by the company, its board and a highly skilled and experienced executive leadership team, 3 of whom are with me this afternoon. We're joined today by the Chief Network Officer, Mr Dion Labonovich, our Chief Development Officer for Regional and Remote, Mr Gavin Williams, our Chief Customer Officer, Ms Anna Perrin. Ms Perrin joined NBN from Nokia in February 2023. Anna brings a wealth of international experience to NBN from across the telecommunications and digital industries, including senior executive roles at Nokia, Accenture and Axicom. This is Ms Perrin's first appearance before the committee, and likewise it's also Mr Labonovich's first appearance. Mr Labonovich has more than a decade of experience leading NBN's network and operational functions and was appointed as the Chief Network Officer at NBN on the 1st of October 2023.
Mr Knox, I'm going to just take a moment to say this is an extraordinarily large statement of which we have a printed copy. Maybe if you would provide us with a slightly abridged version, that might assist, because I know that senators do have a lot of questions and we have to pull up at 1:30.
Okay, well, I'll see what I can do.
We can table it, so it'll be published?
Sure, I'd rather just continue with it if I could.
Just as swiftly as you can,
okay,
because people wish to ask questions.
I'll do what I can.
And they have your statement in front of you.
Terrific. Turning now to other matters, I'd like to provide an update on the capital strategy. It remains focused on refinancing the outstanding $5.5 billion. That's the balance of the original $19.5 billion for the Commonwealth loan. That will be completed by June of this year on time and as required. So I'd also like to say that we're on track to meet our revenue earnings before interest, tax and depreciation and amortisation, or EBITDA guidance, which the company set for the fiscal year, as outlined in our Corporate Plan 2024. So the first half of this year, we achieved a revenue of $2.75 billion, up 5% on last year, and our EBITDA was $1.99 billion, up 10% on the same time last year. So we're performing against our current statement of expectations with significant investment, capital investment in both growth and maintenance investments. We'll talk about that more today. And we're committed to network upgrades across the fixed line and fixed wireless networks, enabling approximately 90% of fixed line premises to order up to 1 gigabit per second services by December 2025, and high-speed plans for all fixed wireless users by December 2024. I'd just like to touch on a couple of announcements we've made since our last estimates. In March, we launched consultation with our retailers on a proposal to accelerate speeds to customers connected to the NBN network via fibre to the premises and our hybrid fibre coaxial technologies. Our full fibre rollout also reached a major milestone in Victoria and New South Wales by enabling more than 1 million premises across each state to be eligible for full fibre upgrades to the NBN network. In April, we worked with Nokia to demonstrate world first by achieving a wholesale download speeds of 83 gigabits per second. This is on the live full fibre access network as part of a technical demonstration. And in May, we published our wholesale tariff list for FY25 and 3-year wholesale pricing roadmap for FY25 to 27, as we are required to do under the special access undertaking. We also issued a number of consultation papers to the industry, and it's in response to the step change in technology adoption and usage in Australia and globally. The move leverages the growing capabilities of fibre connectivity and responds to the demand we're seeing now and in the future for full fibre upgrades and higher speed tiers. 4 weeks ago, we responded to feedback from our internet retailers by bringing forward discussions on 2 gigabit per second wholesale download speeds. The company also issued a related consultation paper, the next generation FTTP network termination devices, also referred to as NTDs or NBN connection boxes, an essential requirement to enable multi-gigabit speeds. The deadline for retailers to respond to the original consultation paper is the 27th of June, and we expect to confirm outcomes of that consultation in the first quarter of FY25. Our investments in fibre, higher speeds and greater network operational capacity will help us realise the economic and social opportunities that come from a more connected Australia. We are seeing more NBN customers realise the benefits of high speed and reliable full fibre connection. In the current financial year, in the 10 months to April 2024, NBN full fibre connections grew by more than 280,000 to 2.1 million premises. Our job is to ensure that the infrastructure is sufficient to support the explosion of data that we are going to see in years to come. And we also need to evolve our products over time to keep up with the rapid pace of change in technologies. Economic research from Accenture, commissioned by NBN and published in February 2024, shows that our network is supporting productivity and social equity for the nation. The Accenture research report has estimated that a faster, higher capacity NBN network will increase gross domestic product, or GDP, by about $400 billion over the 8 years.
I'm going to have to wind you up.
Okay.
Senators require some answers to some questions. Appreciate the statement. They do have it in front of them.
Thank you, Chair.
And we will publish it. Thank you. Firstly, I'll just say I had the fibre to the premises experience a couple of months ago, which was great. I was surprised it didn't cost me anything.
Sorry, you're surprised?
It didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
People assume that it's going to cost them. You get the email that says you can upgrade to this. I was very surprised. I'm just saying. I was very surprised.
That's good. Thank you.
And thank you. We'll go directly to Senator Sharma.
Thanks. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Mr Knox. I just had some questions about the NBN financials, which you touched on in your opening statement. Looking at your statement for the 6 months to 31 December, your financial statement that was published on the 8th of February, I couldn't find any reference to cash flow in there, either cash flow or free cash flow. Have you got those figures? Could you share those with me?
I don't have them handy. I have to take that on notice, Senator.
Have you got a Chief Financial Officer there, Mr Knox?
Not with me, no. I was Chief Financial Officer at the time of that publication.
So you can't go to the... So I'm just asking for some simple financial metrics on which are in your published documents. You don't have them available?
Not to hand, no, Senator. Is there something you can specifically refer to? I might be able to give some colour.
Well, I want to know what free cash flow was for the half year ending 31 December 2023, but it's not in your It's not in the published release you put out on the 6th of February.
Again, I don't have that to hand. I'd have to follow up with the answer on the question on notice.
Yeah, we're coming to a budget estimate, so we don't know financial questions. There's no financial.
Well, the financials are published. I can tell you that our operating cash flows, and there is a statement, actually, I'm now looking at it, there is a statement there on free cash flow.
Okay, so what is it, Mr Knox?
December 23, for the 6 months, it was about $1 billion, .06 negative free cash flow.
Negative free cash flow, okay. Yes. And from what I understand, that's a deterioration on the corresponding period for 2022. Is that your understanding as well?
That is correct.
So what was it for the corresponding period in 2022? Have you got that?
It was $623 million negative.
Okay, so it's deteriorated by $400 million in a year, about 70%.
Well, deteriorated depends on how you look at it. The main reason for the change was the significant investments we continue to make, and these largely are investments that provide us with the return. So if you look at our capital, what
does your forward guidance say on future free cash flow? Then are you expecting that to improve?
We don't provide forward guidance on our financials, mainly because we're part of we now have a considerable amount of commercial debt, and we need to be very careful about crossing boundaries in terms of making forecasts into those markets.
Okay, I'm just wondering, is free cash flow likely to continue to deteriorate at 70% per year? But you tell me you don't think so.
Look, into the future, well into the future, it's the nature of these infrastructure builds, if you like, or investments or assets, that the heavy investment is in the early days, and then once that investment is complete is when the cash flows turn positive. It's a question of when do we stop the investments, and at the moment the investments are all around about lifting that digital capability for all Australia. So these are investments in fibre, which provides us with savings further down the track because of the cost of servicing legacy technologies.
Okay, well, look, I might put some more questions on notice about that, because that is of concern to me. Could we just turn to user numbers, connection numbers? Because some of the figures I've seen there were also of concern to me. So according to the last NBN weekly data that I've got, the number of satellite connections, which I think you refer to as Sky Muster, that's right, that's down to about 86,000, which has fallen about 20,000 in the past 2 years. Fixed wireless is basically not showing much growth, I don't think, over the last year. Brownfield sites are dropping as well. Where do you see the areas of growth in terms of connections? If we could start perhaps with the satellite business, Sky Muster. Why do we think numbers are falling there?
Thanks, Senator. Our resident expert on satellite is Mr Williams.
Thanks, Mr Knox. Gavin Williams, Chief Development Officer for Regional and Remote. Thanks for the question, Senator. So, there's been a fair bit going on in the satellite industry and the satellite footprint, and I think in this committee we've addressed some of those points in the past around declines in the satellite numbers. If I try and summarise, there's the two big things that have hit the market include the expansion of 5G networks with metropolitan kind of pricing for larger plans, and the introduction of low Earth orbit satellites. And I think, as the marketing adage goes, if there's a new hippopotamus in the zoo, the customers will go and take a look. And it's realistic to expect, when there are significant market shifts and new entrants, that market shares will move around. For our part, the important thing is to ensure we do everything we can to make sure our services are match fit. And to that end, for our fixed wireless service, we're upgrading that significantly as part of a Commonwealth co-investment, $480 million, to lift its average capability, to lift the highest speeds available on that network, so the customers in regional Australia can really take advantage of the sort of economic benefits that Mr Knox made mention to in his opening remarks, and also expand the footprint geographically by about 50%, but in terms of the number of homes and businesses, about 120,000. And what that's enabled us to do is to reimagine the capacity management on our satellite service. And very importantly, last December we introduced uncapped data plans on Sky Muster with speed tiers, 3 speed tiers with up to 100 megabits per second at various price points. And the value propositions for Sky Muster, I mean, are pretty manifest, frankly, in terms of $0 connections, professional installs and assurance, and monthly fees that represent very good value. And as a consequence,
you said, Mr Williams, you announced that new offering in December. Is that right?
Last December, yeah. And as a consequence, we've seen.
But I mean, my figures here show that Skylink customers since last December have declined by about 4,000.
Yeah, what we said this time last year, Senator, the numbers. I mean, one thing we are is very transparent on our numbers, as you see, because they're on the transparency report. This time last year, we were seeing declines in the order of about 2,500 a month, and we're seeing now about 400 a month. So,
but do we expect that to continue to decline, and we've just slowed the rate of decline?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. I think we're seeing signs that the declines on the satellite service are slowing, and we're seeing new cohorts of customers become aware of that service and avail themselves of that service as well. So that speaks to the Sky Muster service. In terms of fixed wireless, I mean, I made mention of the transformational upgrades we're making in several steps, including optimising that network such that the service is now delivering typical busy period speeds around 50 megabits per second right across the network, and we're probably just past 50% through physical upgrades. The consequence, Senator, of that, notwithstanding the work we're doing to minimise disruption for customers, is that customers on that fixed wireless network have patiently experienced some upgrade inconvenience, and we thank them for their patience in that regard, but a very rapid improvement in the service capability. So, yeah, we'll have concluded that upgrade program by December, and I think it will represent a significant transformational improvement in the value proposition for customers on that footprint.
Are you the expert on the brownfields business as well, Mr Williams, or can you answer questions on that?
I've probably got one of my colleagues. I could phone a friend for that, Senator, and Ms Perrin is probably more able to address those matters.
Well, I'd just be interested.
Wind up on this topic, Senator Sharma.
This will be my last question, Chair. Just on the brownfields business, I mean, that's by far the biggest part of your business, right? And the number of connections has been steadily dropping. I mean, I think the last figures were about 7.15 million, but it seems to be dropping by 5,000 or 6,000 sort of every month in that order. I mean, what's the reason for that? What's your market analysis say for why the brownfields business continues to decline?
Thank you, Senator. And it's Anna Perrin. I'm the Chief Customer Officer of NBN. So just to take a step back, the number the premises count that we really follow is the number of additional premises that have been added to the network overall. So that's across all of our technologies, including fixed wireless and satellite. So from the 10 months from the end of the financial year last year to the end of April this year, we added 53,000 premises to the network. Now, notwithstanding your question, there are...
So are they actually on the network, or they're just ready to connect?
No, sorry, they are. We added 53,000 additional premises connected to the network. So we see the number of premises that are connected to the NBN overall continues to grow. There's some complexity around the brownfields numbers, and we are actually looking at our reporting at the moment. part of the complexity is that sometimes a brownfield can become a greenfield, and let me just give you some colour on that. You could be moving into a home where you put planning permission into that home. You may decide that you want to build 2 new townhouses on that property. So it might be that your brownfield premise becomes 2 greenfield premises, and sometimes because we don't see customer data, that's owned by the retailer. We only have premises data. Sometimes our reporting isn't as accurate, but we know that the 53,000 additional premises on the network is accurate. So that's the one that we follow. Also, you will see some changes in brownfields to greenfields as we upgrade to fibre as well. So some of that will be copper legacy becoming part of the fibre network as well.
Okay. Chair, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm happy to hand back to you. Thank you, Ms Barrett.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Senator Henderson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr Knox and team, good afternoon. Look, I just wanted to go back to the satellite business because that does appear to be falling through the floor. But what concerns me is that when I raised these issues with NBN 2 years ago when I was the Shadow Minister, my concerns were sort of battered off. Even under circumstances when it was very clear that Starlink was providing an infinitely better service than Sky Master, and farmers and other people in regional areas were moving to Starlink in droves. Why hasn't the NBN been able to better manage the threat of Starlink and fend off this competitive threat, including by escalating its move to alternate technology?
So thanks for the question, Senator, and perhaps I'll address that. NBN and Sky Master. NBN is a statutory infrastructure provider who's there for customers in the bush, wherever they are in the country. The Sky Master service, when it launched, provided, for the first time, I met kids in distance education for the first time seeing their classmates on video. That was a time when low Earth orbit technologies weren't available. So NBN signed up to a technological capability that I'd characterise at the time as leading edge, not bleeding edge. Now, those satellites have an end of life that's predominantly a function of the amount of fuel in them, and that fuel we forecast to run out in the early 2030s, although there are techniques that can extend the life now. As you say, Senator, the satellite industry, well, you allude to, the satellite industry has moved more in the last 3.5 years in some respects for consumer broadband than it has in 35 years. So what NBN's doing is...
I apologise for cutting in, but we are under extreme time pressure. And I'm sorry, I forget your name and I can't see your name on the screen because I'm attending remotely.
That's Gavin Williams, Senator.
Oh, sorry, Mr Williams. Mr Williams, I know that you and I discussed this a couple of years ago when I raised these concerns, and I guess my concern is why the government's response to what is a massive issue for NBN was simply to establish a low orbit satellite committee back in October 2022, but there doesn't seem to have been any subsequent action, including from the NBN, on this significant competitive threat. And as a result, your satellite business is diving.
If I can respond to that, Senator. So, I mean, the things that NBN is doing in regional Australia is it's uplifting its gig-capable fibre. So there's now about 660,000 homes and businesses in regional Australia that can access fibre on demand to gig. It's investing with, as part of a Commonwealth grant to lift its fixed wireless capability. And importantly, Senator, in relation to the satellite footprint, expanding fixed wireless geographically by about 50% to take in what would otherwise be customers mapped for the satellite service to the tune of about 120,000 homes and businesses. And what that's enabled us to do is to launch the plans that I spoke to earlier, Senator, which offer I mean, it might sound convenient of me to say, Senator, because it's a service we offer, but the value proposition of $0 installs, professional installs and assurance, and plans that are, plans down to retailers are offering plans down to $50 a month for uncapped data. These are the sorts of things that NBN's doing whilst we engage both with the low Earth orbit working group that you mentioned. And I think we've been public in this forum as well, Senator, about the work we're doing to understand the options we have available to partner with LEO providers to enable NBN to utilise that kind of technology if the appropriate kind of statutory infrastructure provider obligations can be fulfilled with, in that kind of context.
Look, I guess it's all very well to have zero connection, but if you cannot get a proper broadband connection, as many customers have found on Sky Muster, that is driving them to Starlink, which is much superior in the technology offering compared to Sky Muster. And again, I say, given the government's lacklustre response, setting up a low-orbit satellite committee back in October 22, what's happened since then? How can the NBN possibly expect to maintain customers on its satellite service when it's offering such inferior technology?
Well, Senator, I think what I'd say to customers who are not enjoying a Sky Muster service that they feel they've bought is to contact the retailer, because professional assurance, wherever it is across our footprint, is one of the things that we do. If we determine that it's an NBN...
People are pulling their hair out. If they're not going to contact the retailer, what they're doing when their speeds are grinding to a halt is they're contacting Starlink, and they're moving across because they can't run their businesses based on some of the terrible experiences they've had on Sky Muster. So my question is, what is NBN doing about this?
Well, Senator, I mean, I can only reiterate, if a customer... I have first-hand experience leading my business from regional Australia, supported by Sky Muster, with speeds, it stays up on Teams calls all day with speeds around 100 megabits per second down, and, often when I do speed tests, you get close to 20 meg up. So my encouragement to customers who aren't getting the quality of service, it's our job, Senator, to make sure that they get the service that they're paying for, and that's one of the things we do. If we determine with the retailer that it's an NBN issue, we'll send someone out and with a truck roll to replace faulty equipment if indeed that's causing the fault. Meanwhile.
I've really got to be quick because I've got to share the call and we've got very limited time. So do you have any plans to start to offer the sort of technology being offered by Starlink?
Well, as I've said, Senator, we've been engaged, and I think I've given testimony to this point in the past. We've been engaged. We issued a request for information last year to the satellite industry, to the low Earth orbit satellite industry, to understand whether there are, whether there is an option for NBN at an appropriate point in time, taking account.
And what was the result? What was the result of that expression of interest that you put out to the
request for information? That process is ongoing, Senator.
So that's been a year in the making. Can you provide on notice all correspondence and materials in relation to that offer and any responses that you've received? Because it's concerning that went out a year ago and yet there's been no development since then.
I don't think it was quite a year ago, Senator, but I do need to. We'll take that on notice. The process is commercial in confidence, but I'll give that caveat, noting the Senate can accommodate such things, but we'll take on notice and ensure.
Well, that's a matter for the committee. So it's not a given that you are not required to provide that information. So that will be a matter for the committee to determine.
Thank you, Senator. So we can take on notice to provide some information on that.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We now have a miraculous feat of 3 senators with 2 questions each and approximately 14 minutes. So, if everyone can be swift, focused, and if there's anything you've got that you can put on notice, that would be great. We will go back to Senator Sharma in the first instance.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be as quick as I can. I was just curious to know about the fibre to the premises connection, because the Chair mentioned her own experience there, being able to connect it free. I've had constituents be in touch with me who've said they've been quoted $9,000 to get connected to the premises when homes on the same street are being offered the service for free. This is in Western Sydney. I'm just wondering, how is it determined whether people are able to get free fibre to the premises or whether they'll need to pay $9,000 to upgrade it? I think this particular suburb was it's Glenmore Park, which is in Western Sydney.
Senator, I'll ask Mr Labonovich to respond to that.
Thanks, Mr Knox. Dion Labanovich, appearing as the Chief Network Officer today. Senator, in terms of the fibre upgrade program, we are focused on delivering that upgrade, which is 3.5 million premises across Australia to be completed by December 25 of next year. For all of those premises and customers that are within that footprint, it is a free upgrade. There are areas outside of that footprint. We have around 600,000 premises that aren't in that program, and depending on that address, Senator, there is a technology choice option for customers to pay for those upgrades where it's uneconomical for NBN to provide. So I would like to, if I could, Senator, get that information after the hearing to understand if that is the case. Everyone within the program, within the upgraded footprint, is eligible for a free upgrade, and if there's any communications that have gone on there incorrectly, we'll follow that up as well.
Okay, I'll pass you those details on notice, but just conceptually, I mean, is it feasible for people in the same neighbourhood, the same street, outer suburban area, for some part of that street to be eligible for the fibre upgrade program but not other parts of the street, or are the sort of the rings around the fibre upgrade program a little more all-encompassing than that?
There are, Senator, there are areas within the footprint that are highly uneconomical for us, and that's determined based on pit and pipe infrastructure that's available in certain parts of suburbs and areas that may not be. So there are areas where potentially some parts of streets and communities won't be able to get or be part of the 3.5 million upgrade program at this point in time because of the nature and the costs associated to get fibre deeper into those areas. So there may be that situation where customers are on the edge of our upgraded program.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind, Mr Labonovich, I'll put some of this detail in a question on notice if you could have a look into it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Sharma. Just on that, if we hadn't been in a situation where the Coalition had a fairly shabby copper option, that sort of bungled policy has left us in this situation where we now have to go and retrofit because it was a bit of a poor cousin. I'm getting a lot of strife off my colleagues here for asking this question, but I do feel like we're rolling on this attack on what is an upgrade, what is a process to improve the NBN to get more connections across Australia to people. From the questions we've heard from some of my colleagues, you'd imagine we were going backwards, but that is not the case, is it?
No, Senator. I mean, the work we're doing at the moment in regards to the upgrade across the network, we now have more than 8.7 million premises across Australia are able to access gigabit speeds. That's through the upgrade program, but also the evolution of what we've done in our HFC networks in metro capital cities across Australia as well. And by the end of December 25 next year, so within 18 months, we'll have more than 10 million premises, or around 90% of the fixed line network in Australia able to achieve gigabit speeds, and even beyond those speeds as well, which is something we're in consultation with retailers on at the moment.
Great, that's good to hear. Senator Payman.
I'll keep it brief. Good afternoon. Just in terms of, obviously, climate change driving more extreme weather that we're starting to see, including floods and bushfires, can you just quickly talk us through your, how you're ensuring that NBN is making your network more resilient, and what are some of the backup capabilities to provide support to communities?
Is that something for
Maybe Mr Williams on the backup.
Yeah, in terms of, I'll bullet point a few things, Senator. It includes, I mean, my patch includes the fixed wireless and satellite networks, but I would observe that the pushing fibre deeper into regional Australia is also putting, objectively very resilient technology that requires less power. So typically the thing that fails first in a disaster is power access itself. And short of becoming a power company, which is not really part of our charter, we look at the level of power resilience in our network. For fixed wireless, for example, we have hybrid power cubes which support large battery arrays, diesel generators with large fuel cells and solar power, and some of those can operate offline for many months between fuel runs. Perhaps just one other thing to point out would be our Strengthening Telecommunications Against Natural Disaster program that's seen us pre-install satellite services into evacuation centres, learning from Black Summer bushfires, and other services into emergency responder centres. So, yeah, the opportunity to have standalone, where grid power is off, standalone battery or generator provided comms is something that we are supporting for communities.
Thank you. Senator Davey.
Thank you, and I'll be brief, although I appreciate you mentioning the fantastic coalition government's program Strengthening Telecommunications Against Natural Disasters. I have some questions about that I will put on notice.
I'll call that one all.
I just have one question which follows on very nicely from Senator Payman's that I wanted to ask today. I've got other questions I'll put on notice. But in terms of services after a natural disaster, we know with old-fashioned telecommunications and old-fashioned landlines, there used to be a universal service obligation where services had to be, reconnected within a period of time. Is there any such universal service obligation for NBN? And if so, what is it? If there's not a legislated USO, what is the NBN's KPIs for making sure they reconnect people, particularly after a natural disaster or a power outage, as soon as possible?
Thank you, Senator. Mr Lobanovich will respond to that.
Senator, we don't have legislation related to USO obligation for NBN. That is held by Telstra. When there is a natural disaster across the NBN network, both in the fixed line and the fixed wireless and satellite areas, our absolute focus and our priority is to reconnect people immediately. So we have in the order of around 1,800 technicians, both internally directly employed by NBN as well as our service delivery partners that are in all parts of Australia, both metro, regional and rural, to support those aspects. We're also very much focused around preventing and proactively looking at the weather events that are occurring. So we're ready to go with some of the restoration activities that Mr Williams talked about just earlier as well. So we look at immediate restoration timeframes and we prioritise our resources to make sure people get back online as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
If I could clarify, so the universal service obligation relates to more voice services, and the statutory infrastructure provider obligations remain for broadband providers, and that's something that NBN is subject to. And it is a time where that USO SIP, that whole regime is under significant review.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go to Senator Cadell.
So, getting my nerd fix on. In the late 90s, early 2000s, there was lots of RIM servers put on greenfield infold sites with single coppers instead of pairs and stuff like that. Have we replaced most of those so they're connected now more fully, or are they all still operating on, because you couldn't get DSL on a single copper when you haven't got a pair? What are they doing now?
Yeah.
So from a new development estate housing perspective...
Well, this was in the thousands. I'm just using rim servers with single coppers, and I wonder if we retrofitted all of those now, or is there a process going forward on
If they're part of the copper footprint that we're upgrading with fibre, absolutely, fibre will be available to those areas and premises. And every new housing and development that applies with NBN, we do push fibre deeper into those areas, whether they're large or small.
But yeah,
as
the
well.
retrospect, yeah.
And as part of the fibre upgrade program that we're doing across the 3.5 million copper footprint, we are putting fibre into those areas.
Is that a targeted thing where you look at where the rim servers are on?
No, every area we will make sure if the premises are in those areas, and it makes part of our economic decisions around the footprint that we're building fibre into. All premises will be served with fibre, so we'll take carriage of those areas with fibre.
Okay, and Ethernet over first mile, those sorts of things, they're all history and back in the goal, or still operating?
Yep, and with fibre there are more products that are coming that we're able to support with retailers around the use of fibre, and that's for business services, small businesses, and at the end of the day fibre is that glass that's in the ground that as we change the electronics on either end of the customer home and at our exchange sites, we're able to continue to provide ongoing services, and that's the beauty of fibre as the ultimate technology of what we'll be able to upgrade going into the future decades.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I've nerded out.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody, for being so efficient there. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome again, Mr Knox, as the interim CEO. And thank you all for answering our questions. You have taken some questions on notice. The date of return is July sometime? There we go. No, 6th of August. 6th of August. There we go. Excellent. I would like to thank Hansard Broadcasting and the Secretariat for all of their great work, particularly today as we've jumped from one topic to the other, and we've had a big day before you guys came along. And any written questions on notice that senators wish to lodge need to be done by the 28th of June. And with that, the committee stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.